Okay, so we're starting to talk about Rousseau, and I'm reading Emile by him, and in English, and kind of talking about like happiness, how happiness is not so much like this ebullience and excitement and pleasure, more like a calmness. And then, he has these archetypes that he kind of contrasts. He's famous for the noble savage idea. And here he contrasts the savage man with the man of the world. And there was I think this quote that I'm going to read starts with this sort of condemnation of sort of, like you pointed out, materialism, or this pursuit of rabid kind of sensory stimulation, pleasures and things. And I thought it was kind of a condemnation of like social media, uh, as is the man of the world, maybe, or what sort of social media might produce in us psychologically. But here's the quote: "The restlessness of desire produces curiosity and inconstancy. The emptiness of turbulent pleasure produces boredom. One is never bored with his condition when one knows none more agreeable. Of all the men in the world, savages are the least curious and the least bored. They are indifferent to everything. They enjoy not things but themselves. They pass their lives in doing nothing and are never bored." And so here's a contrast with the man of the world that I think is kind of a, yeah, condemnation of our artificial kind of selves. "The man of the world is whole in his mask, almost never being in himself. He is always alien and ill at ease when forced to go back there. What he is nothing. What he appears to be is everything for him." But yeah, so it seems like Rousseau's kind of concern is how, as I was saying, is kind of uh how to be natural but still be in
Mm.
society, to have the advantages of his idea of the savage man, but to still have the tender sentiments, to still have compassion for all other human beings in general in society, to still be psychologically, yeah, whole, happy, all that stuff, and to still be useful as a person in society, and not and but to still live for yourself, not to live for others. Do you ever reflect on this? Do you ever feel that, I mean, it's for many decades now, it's kind of been like there's echoes of this conversation
Mm.
among most people. Sort of, we have this idea of being authentic, being natural, and that society is corrupting. Society is, people are fake, something like that.
Mm.
But do you ever reflect on sort of what truth there might be in those kinds of shibboleths?
Yeah, like I hear a lot of that, like that kind of search for authenticity, but it kind of seems to exist in kind of like a contradictory kind of environment. Now that you also mentioned social media, like being content in that, but yeah, especially within that sphere, I've noticed you'll see a lot of that, like calls for authenticity and not being fakeness, but I don't know, but it just seems to, I feel like seems like the social. media, like that medium itself is kind of, it kind of makes it not seem genuine or sincere, really. It's kind of, uh, what's it called? Like, what's that term again in psychology? Cognitive dissonance. um,
Hmm. Well, I'm not meaning social
yeah,
media per se, but more
yeah.
just, yeah, what do you think of that
Well,
argument?
I'd say it's probably a good thing to hear since I guess maybe people are feeling that something isn't right. But I don't know, I feel like it's just kind of very difficult to kind of bring that into kind of true fruition. Uh, but,
What do you think is a good soul or a good life lived?
um,
Do you feel like we know what a good soul is or what a perfect soul is? Or what is a good life lived?
I feel like maybe on the details, maybe we don't. It could be different ideas, but I think maybe we know a lot about what it isn't, and maybe just using that, we could kind of form some idea,
Hmm.
general
Yeah, I
idea.
was thinking something similar that we do have a lot of negatives we're against that seem to
Yeah.
have something to them. Like we tend not to think a violent life is a good life nowadays.
Mhm,
We tend not to think a life of using others is
mhm,
a good life. Those are two things that I think of. But in terms of what is a good man or a good woman or a good person or a good life, I think it's hard. Sometimes maybe what might be considered a cliche springs to mind, um, like you do you, or, things of sayings of that nature.
mhm,
Like the idea is that it's up to everyone to decide. So
mhm,
I don't know if that's laziness or if that's not wanting to offend or not the acknowledgement of diversity or the acknowledgement of freedom and variety. But it seems like one would want to have ideals also. I mean, how could you have a society that does not have an ideal or a few ideals of a human
mhm,
being? That seems, I don't know. What are we supposed to teach the children? I don't know.
mhm. Yeah, and I think when you put it that way, I think we probably do need some kind of ideal. Uh, and yeah, that's the problem.
One thing is we seem to fight against constraints, or we see the beginnings, the formations of ideals as constraining.
Mm,
So that's kind of what springs to mind when I think of that. What is a good, what is specifically a good man or a good woman to you?
mm. Well, when I
Are they
think of that,
different?
I feel that there's like a foundation to being a good human being, but yes, then once you get to the sexes in particular, I think there's like different, like a few different things that distinguish both.
Like what?
Um, like the distinguishing things
Yeah.
or the foundational kinds of things?
Talk about either one.
Okay. Well, when I think of a good person in general, I think of integrity. It's one thing. Um,
So integrity is they are stable, dependable.
mm, yeah, and yeah, and that, and they kind of like stick to their values or beliefs, things like that.
Their words
Even,
and
yeah.
actions agree with each other.
Hmm. So yeah, it's one thing. I think the next thing I would think of is, well, we kind of hinted at it with the maybe natural man, but just his groundedness or connection
Yeah.
with the self. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And yeah, that's where our constant rejoinder to authenticity does have a good core. But sometimes, yeah, oftentimes authenticity, yeah, is something repeated and not felt deeply, certainly,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily understood, and watered down to like a subjective kind of impression.
Groundedness. Seeing the next thing. Well, probably this one is probably a little more culturally subjective, but I just think valuing family. Um, that's at least to me, that's really important.
Mm.
Uh,
Well, it seems like you do need families to have people. A
mm,
society is something that goes on, that needs to
yeah,
have constantly be generating new members.
yeah. So I would think a successful society just kind of encourages those kinds of kinship bonds.
Yeah. Yeah, unless you're going to have some sort of communistic or fascistic kind of human mill. Yeah, you need and I would think and I just think yeah, the best citizens are made in good families. You want yeah, school and extracurricular activities and social things are not enough. I think for psychological health, I think you need love and stability at home.
I'm sure there's more, but yeah, those would be like my top ones.
What
Uh,
about man
do
and
you,
woman?
for men and women.
And that may contribute to the family too, how men are, how women are, and how they view each other.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel when I think of the ideal man, I think of kind of decisiveness and like having a protector kind of spirit. That's really important.
Maybe like a masculine version of the human being you just said.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And yeah, and that in turn, like I feel like I wouldn't feel secure about those two kind of qualities in a
I'm sorry,
man.
what
And
do you
then
mean by that?
yeah, because I think kind of the masculine is their job is to kind of create a feeling of security or create security.
Are you saying you
Uh,
wouldn't feel sort of right about trying to provide that yourself?
I would maybe say maybe the types of security each sex could provide it is different. So uh, I would think maybe kind of a masculine security is kind of protecting from the outside, like
Yeah, that's kind of
ne-
how I think.
yeah, like the negative influences that could be coming in the home or into like or that could influence like a child's spirit or something in some way.
Yeah. Well, you could corrupt
Yeah.
the child's innocence, for instance.
yeah. And then yeah, when then consequently when I think of the ideal woman, I feel like her job is like creating a sense of security inside the home.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, that could include things like warmth and kindness and all things that a child would need inside the home from her.
Yeah. Yeah, and so those are complementary, the male and the female sort of roles. And in a way, they are, yeah, different aspects of the same core value.
Mhm. But yeah, like those things are kind of what I see as distinct traits, I guess,
Mm,
in an ideal man and woman.
yeah. Yeah, I wonder if we hardly ever talk about the family anymore. I look at I don't know, is there a movie that's come out in a long time that shows that shows a stable family that show probably some that shows a stable family, but how about a strong father or
Like I feel that might have been like yeah, it's been a long time. Like I feel even like the 90s show I watched, like a lot of fathers would be dumb and
yeah,
stupid.
I
But
think I
then I
yeah.
then I noticed a change in the more modern shows. I've seen my siblings watch like there's not parents aren't really even present or a big part of the show. So it's become even non-existent in a
Yeah,
lot of
and that
shows I've
seems
noticed.
to in some way parallel people's lives. Yeah. Yeah, I think I might have mentioned to you Robert Bly. He was like a sort of poet, sort of into Jung, like Carl Jung, and sort of like there was like this little men's movement thing in the like 80s and 90s, which wasn't toxic, I think. It wasn't like something like men going their own way or anything like that, or
Mm-hmm.
wasn't
Yeah.
misogynistic or anything. But yeah, I remember him in an interview or in a book that he wrote, like talking about how even then in the maybe 90s, like it, according to him, had been decades of sort of whenever you see the father in like a commercial or TV show, he's usually like this goofy person that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have much respect and doesn't inspire much respect, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like the wife is always the one that has the sense, and the guy is always the uh the oaf, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
Homer Simpson. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I remember watching those kinds of shows as a kid, and I was wondering who the parents were or like what were they like, and can't like the kid characters just come get them for whatever problem they were facing in the show. So yeah, I was already kind of noticing.
Wait, I'm sorry, you're saying the kid tries to get help from the parent but won't.
Or no, like whatever antics the kids would be up to in the show, like I would wonder, can't they just get their parents and uh yeah,
Oh, the
but
kids are
that
in
never
some
really
kind
happened.
of trouble and but they don't go to their
Yeah,
parents for help.
yeah, but in the some shows I watched, they were non-existent. So I was always kind of wondering where the parents were or who were they, what kind of people were they, and but yeah, they never were in the shows or
Is it
they barely
possible that was
appeared.
just a kid-centric show? It wasn't really about family life anyway.
Yeah, I probably was, but maybe I had this idea that they should be around or something, and that just didn't really mesh well with the show or something
Hmm.
with my
Yeah.
perspective on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but either way, yeah, I wonder what our modern idea of family is. I mean, probably there's just lots of different ideas and there's some differences depending on people's political orientations or region or class or like uh, demographic, like immigrant
Mm.
status or not, etc.
Yeah. Yeah, like one thing I've seen a lot in social media, and I think it's starting to kind of feed into like a much less tolerance during family conflicts. So,
Yeah, you've mentioned
um,
this to me, I think. The sort
yeah,
of this sort of knee jerk, like just cut off family members if you're
yeah.
having
So,
problems.
yeah, so I've seen it on Reddit and TikTok stuff my sister has showed me. So,
There's
there will
even
be
like
posts.
uh, abbreviations or something, right? This is like
Yeah, it's
something that's rather common.
yeah. So, it will be like NC means no contact, LC will mean low contact. So there's like a lot of this whole terminology now to describe the degrees to which you're interacting with family. So,
They're
um,
imitating bureaucrats
yeah,
dealing with like nearly faceless like customers
mhm,
when they're talking about dealing with their own flesh and blood.
mhm. Yeah. So yeah, there's like a lot of stuff on social media with people describing the situation and what made them go no contact or low contact. And yeah, and I'm just not, it's, of course, there's situations where it's understandable, but I'm not sure it's really healthy or beneficial to kind of make it this huge kind of trend almost. Because
No,
like you
not
said,
at all.
I feel it's sometimes encouraging knee-jerk reactions to problems that are solvable or
Yeah.
that can be worked through. Uh, but so yeah, I feel
Or
some people
just,
are,
yeah,
yeah,
or just problems exist in relationships. That's how
yeah,
relationships are. Hell is other people, and
yeah,
it's not going to get better by just sort of trying to optimize and manage your life in some way where
mhm,
everything is supposed to be pleasant.
yeah. So yeah, I feel stuff like that is just kind of uh, feeding into this just much lower tolerance in younger people for you know relationship issues, and of
Yeah.
course then yeah, then they go no contact with families, and yeah, that's it's just feeding into the declining relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. And getting back to sort of maybe unstable family life, I mean that does have a lot. I wonder the degree, but it's got to be big. The degree to which having so many people grow up in unstable situations with
Mm,
divorce and father not being there, stuff like that, not having many relatives around, how that feeds into your future, with your future partner
yeah.
and whether or not you're going to have kids and whether you enjoy the envisioning of family life, of home and hearth. Is that like a warm
Mm,
thing for you? Did you have home cooked meals? Did you sit around and have kind of loving laughs and things with your
mm,
family? Or did you not and you grew up sort of bitter about it or reactive and then social media sort of encouraged you to reject it and to be some kind of atomized individual and then maybe you feel that much more, I don't know, behold I don't know. It seems like the family life should be something that you would want people to look back fondly on
mm,
and to look forward to
mm,
if you want to have healthy kids that become healthy, good citizens and care about others and are productive and
mm.
not too imbalanced, not too searching and vain and things. But any more thoughts about a perfect soul?
Mhm. I'm sure there's lots of thoughts to be had, but for now, yeah, I think I've said everything I thought for the moment. But yeah, I just can't really see a healthy soul without family, especially. Um, it's probably not impossible because yeah, there are people that have had those kinds of situations and still become good people, but I
Of
feel it makes it
course.
a lot
And
more difficult,
the
of
reverse
course.
is possible, of
Yeah,
course. But yeah, we're talking about most people.
yeah, yeah. For most people and for society in general, I feel that's not negotiable.
Don't you think we know much more about the perfect body than about the perfect soul? And is this an impoverished state to be in?
I mean, like in the aesthetic sense.
Yeah, whatever you want to mean. I mean, there's different aspects to that certainly, but do you think that that statement in itself is reasonably true?
I'd say so. I think again, like we're kind of very focused on the outside and not so much the inside, like we've kind of been talking about through this whole thing. So yeah, I think people have a lot more to say on that when you ask. What do you think?
Yeah, of course. I think that yeah, I mean, I don't really see much online because of how my feeds are cultivated about the body aesthetics, but I'm adjacent to that in terms of, yeah, longevity, health,
Mm,
you know, physical fitness, strength,
mm,
and yeah, that's linked to experience, and one
mm,
does want to have a base of health and vitality, but you know, that's a base of health and vitality for as a basis for being a human being
mm,
in your life and amongst others, being useful and happy, being loving and compassionate, be, serving a purpose and being connected and feeling connected to
mm,
others and not as an end in itself.
mm.
But I don't hear as much, yeah, about those other things,
Yeah.
except in sort of just general, like connectedness or connections. That's like a word that we
Mhm,
use a lot. But what are the basis of those attachments, or uh, what is like a larger purpose being served by those? I mean, obviously,
mm.
you know, one wants to be heavy, but larger purpose, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think because of my demographics, I'm flooded with a lot of that stuff on social media. Um,
What do you mean?
all that stuff about the body and like people's ideas of what the ideal is, things like that.
Especially, you mean for women?
Yeah,
For guys, I think there's a huge market out there, but I tend not to go for the
yeah,
muscle building and more for the strength building
yeah,
side and health and fitness. But there's a lot out there for the guys too. Although I don't know,
yeah,
it's maybe much worse for women.
yeah.
Okay. Do you think living according to mythology can have has any is any type of a solution? Not seeing things in terms of just their literal meaning, seeing the sort of mythological patterns that we live like human archetypes,
Mm.
be it in formal mythology or in literature that you've read. being a father being the opposite of a Homer Simpson.
Mhm. Uh, I think mythology and these stories, like you're getting at, I'm assuming, just tells people kind of who they are, like what their purpose is. Like it answers a lot of those kinds of questions. Um, so yeah, I feel it made for society in general. Like, I think it would be helpful, uh, even if people don't literally believe the story. But I feel it's just kind of having kind of a story to base their society off from, uh, kind of creates like a kind of uniting ties.
Sort of Harold Bloom's common myths, I guess, his
Yeah,
idea.
yeah, and like you said, like a lot of people just don't know now. Like they have, it's just like this kind of emptiness, and I feel that people are trying to fill it with a lot of the stuff we've talked about, the focusing on appearance or just obtaining things and money and whatever.
Yeah,
So,
Vervaeke talks about people having like, I forget what he calls it, but things, needs, and
mm,
uh being needs. So
yeah,
we do have a need for some things like food,
mhm,
shelter, uh you could say for some entertainment or something like that,
mhm,
knowledge, things.
mhm,
But we also have a need for being, like
mm,
being needs, like to
mm,
be loved, to be connected, to feel purpose. But we often try to get the latter needs met with the former
mm,
objects. So we try to
mhm,
get being needs met with things. So,
mhm,
and I think he points out even how our language sometimes betrays this confusion.
mm,
Like we, instead of making love, we're having sex, things like that.
mm,
We're trying to have things and filling the
mm.
hole, but it's the wrong type of thing, filling the
Yeah,
hole.
yeah, and I feel like all those material things we're focused on is whether it's yeah the money or social media, whatever. It's like it's just trying to take away from you, to kind of make 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 you feel not whole. Um,
That reminds me of
yeah,
something. A friend of mine in college, his father worked in advertising for a long time, and he said he quit because he was tired of making people unhappy. That's what advertising is
yeah,
about, is making people unhappy.
yeah, because you're pretty much trying to tell people what you're missing, or you're telling them that they're missing something.
Yeah.
Uh,
You
so
didn't
yeah,
know
all
this
the
product existed five
yeah,
seconds ago, but now you know it, and now you know you don't have it.
mhm,
And now you know you're not like the others. You're not as good as the others who do have it, and you're not like these happy people
yeah,
in this commercial that BS this idea of happiness to you through with having this product.
yeah. Yeah, so like there's all these forces just trying to take away from that wholeness or make people's souls. So yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like in mythology kind of does the opposite of that. It's giving people like pieces to become more whole
Yeah.
and kind of giving them answers and you know to what kind of person they should be, how they should live, and
Yeah.
what they should strive for.
Giving you an answer that was always there that you didn't
Mm,
know, rather than making you want to have something that you didn't know about and don't have and don't need.
mm,
Okay. So maybe we'll meditate on all that and come back next time
Mm.
calmer and stronger and happier.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm gonna try to not pay attention to things that are trying to not make me feel whole. So,
Yeah, aren't those
yeah.
things irrelevant?
Mm.
Okay, well, until then,
Mm.
okay, we'll take care.